Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of the Further Stars Podcast third season. And my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. This is an amazing episode because Jsu Garcia boards the mothership to discuss the Nightmare on Elm Street. Audio listening recommended. Now come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Garcia. Thank you for coming to the Traversing the Stars podcast.
Okay, hi Jeff.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, sir. So I always start with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love for acting and who your earliest influences?
I would say it's several, but the beginning in different stages. I'm like at least 3 decades actor. I retired, so I would say the first is Dean, Brando, Cliff, Montgomery Cliff, and then I ended up falling in love with Tom Hanks in Big, and I just went, all right, that's simple. Why is it, you know, why is it got to be like dramatic? And all like, suffering. And so he was great. I love Brad Pitt's, like Troy was great. And so my peers, Matt Dillon has always been my inspiration for the 80s. He was groundbreaking. He was the pioneer for all the teens and then some. And there was a time, I don't know about now. No, everyone's doing franchise. There was a time where someone would pick you, like Blue Lagoon. You were an unknown, and you would blow up. That was Christopher Adkins. You can do Endless Love with Bertolucci. Franco Zeffirelli. That guy was new. Some of these people's careers faded, but still minded. I would say those guys were great. And then now I just love Mel Gibson, no matter what he does and touches. Russell Crowe, no matter what he does and touches. And so there's a whole Hugh Jackman is great. So there's a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much.
It's kind of interesting that you mention like Brando. I feel like Brando is a much different type of actor than some of the actors presently, and how he goes about his performance. Would you say that's the same? And how did your view change in acting by going from Brando to, like, said, Hanks and later Crowe and Gibson?
I had to separate the art from the human, and so each of these people had skills. Hanks was able to be like a good guy. Not that Brando wasn't, but you can be a human, be good, and be nice in the job and get things done. And I didn't think Brando, according to his legacy, he was a troubled guy. And I'm like, well, do I have to be, in order to be that good, do I have to be that troubled? Because I want to go home. See, acting is like, it's a day job. I want to go home with my happiness and stuff. I saw Tom Hanks demonstrate that, and I thought, that's a good guy. Mel Gibson, he hit some bumps. Robert Downey Jr. hit bumps, but they demonstrate how they're able to balance. The acting is not easy, man. So the actor that can balance, home. Look at Jennifer Lopez and Ben. It's public. It shouldn't be. But how do you handle life and then do a career? It's a hard thing. And so you have to separate it and then do your work, be nice, and go home.
I kind of feel like separating work and your home life is a skill on its own. Were you able to master that skill at some point? And how hard was it to find mastery of that skill?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Perry is a good example. They're teachers for us to demonstrate. For me, it was, I had my drugs 38 years ago. I'm sober and clean. So how I did that was I do personal education development called Insight Seminars through John Roger, and now all these data coming out with data that sleep's good for you. Duh. And then sleep meditation's good for you. And so but I was on it, and so was a whole bunch of other people on it. And most actors will do yoga or have some kind of spiritual something where they can disconnect. That's the key. Is you're playing a character you have to disconnect from, because you don't want to go home with it. Otherwise, if you keep playing a drunk, for instance, an alcoholic,
Yeah.
it's a good bet you're going to pick those, because actors really dig in deep. So you're going to pick those habits. And I know actors. I was one. Oh yeah, let me go check it out. What it is to drink a little bit. Oh, he's in rehab. Well, maybe I do a little bit of the pills. Let's see what happens.
Mm.
And then before you know it, on his next gig, he can't shake it. Can't shake it off. Good actors. I mean, I'm blown away by Ryan Reynolds and the other guy from Barbie,
Oh yeah. Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. They seem to have tongue in cheek and not really taking themselves serious.
Mm.
And I love Mark Wahlberg. These guys survive it somehow. So, I know it's not easy. It may look like the key thing, whether it's meditation, business, acting, it's a discipline. It's mastering a discipline, and the disciplines are what kicks your butt, because you're up at 5 a.m. People think that acting is easy. Well, other labor jobs are pretty tough, but acting is also creating a discipline of 5 a.m. Wake up, got to learn your lines, have them done, and sit in the makeup chair by 6 maybe, and then you're doing maybe 12-hour days, and then the series is a whole other animal. People that do 22 shows for half a year. Movies, Tom Cruise he's insane. He's like massively, probably takes him, I don't know, 3 to 5 something years to make one movie, because he's focused on it. He's checking for stunts. I mean, he's a completely different animal of discipline. And you can move that discipline to any job and you'll be successful.
Mm.
And that's what the actor has to balance, though, because you're messing with mental and emotional skills, not, you're not blowing glass.
Mm. When you're, as we're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street, you're filming a horror movie, something that's so immersed in grimness and horror and violence and all that. Is it hard to not take that home with you at the end of the day?
No, because most of that stuff we're laughing behind the scenes. It's done in sequences. We're not, when they were doing the revolving room, if you recall, we were playing poker below. The room is on these arms that make it revolve and turn. And Tina and Amanda Weiss and the stunt lady are in there, falling on blood that's fake. It tastes like sugar. And we're all like cracking up. Nobody was really, you're doing the acting, screaming, and, and that scream's not good enough. And people are joking in some way. I mean, I remember Robert Englund was constantly doing jokes or constantly telling stories. So I didn't think that it was that grim, because it's not, it's most movies are not sequentially shot. So some movies you're doing the end and you're like, what? I'm lost. And, maybe Braveheart's doing all the battle scenes first. That's grim. I mean, in the scene of We Were Soldiers could have been grim, because it's constant shooting. Even if you're shooting blanks, you're really getting like a little dose of like, oh, this is probably what it was like. But horror films, you see Robert Englund put the makeup on and off. It's hilarious.
I mean, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street was such a wonderful film, and just so many people came out of that film. Nancy, I don't pronounce her name wrong, Lander Camp, Johnny Depp, and all that. Was it a tight set, or were there like niches of personalities on the set?
We were all young. Uh, we didn't have attitude. We had no egos. We're the beginnings of the egos. And so there was no Johnny Depp. He was just Johnny Depp, and I don't mean like he's not Sparrow. He's just like a clean cut kid with a sweater looking cool.
Mm.
And I was cool. We were all like young, trying to go after something. We had no idea what we were all like strapping ourselves on a rocket ship. We had no idea what was going to happen. And then somewhere in the middle of the galaxy, we would get blown up and stranded in different planets. And I mean, the blow up, I mean by our egos,
Yeah.
we're just blown up like, oh yeah, he's that person. I think I saw Johnny Depp, and he just is just a completely different person because of all the, we grow and we change, and Heather's different. We grow, we change. But we're not those 19, 20, 21-year olds that were like, oh, what's this? Oh, interesting. And then Wes took it for a ride, and now it's like 40-year anniversary.
Yeah.
I just saw that I'm on TMZ for like before and after. Man, that's a juxtaposition. That's a mind blast when
Yeah.
someone's doing a story on you, and this is what you look like now and then, and you're like, what? And then I got a residual on Nightmare, and then I signed 25 items in the UK. I meet up with these fanboys that gather items for collectors, and I sign. So it was like, and then hooking up with you, it's just all. I had an earlier interview yesterday, so it's kind of, who knew 40 years later, and Halloween's coming up, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of stuff.
I mean, when you're watching something like the TMZ thing where they're doing the before and after, is that complimentary because they're discussing you, or is it? Like, how
Oh
do
no, it's I learned from my spiritual teacher, John Rogers. They can say anything about you, just make them spell your name right. No, I've been around. Negative and positive is about the same.
Hmm.
It might hurt your it might hurt your money, but at the end of the day, people are going to forget and just go, oh yeah, that's that guy. And you're associated with crazy stuff. Like, thank God I did 70 movies, but I can still be locked in as the Nightmare on Elm Street guy.
Hmm.
But look at Johnny Depp. He's locked in as Sparrow.
Hmm.
It depends. But can be. But I don't know. I think it's a compliment. Whether someone writes good or bad about you. I mean, in the case of what's going on with celebrities now in America, I'm not going to name names, and they get caught or they get indicted or something like that. We have to all remember that everyone's innocent until we're so eager to immediately judge and bring down people. Like, take a break and let's get all the evidence in before you do anything.
Right.
But by then, it seems like, hey, in 2,000 years ago, you would get assassinated. So this day and age, you just get character assassinated, but you live.
So going back a little bit to looking at Nightmare on Elm Street, before it was anything, like once again, you're in the very first movie. No one's seen a horror movie like that before. When you got the role and they started talking to you about what the movie was going to be, what did you think about the plot? What were your thoughts about when you first heard about what it was going to be? Did you already know this was going to be something great, or were you thinking like, what the hell is this?
No, we knew because the landscape in the 80s in horror was Friday the 13th was basically killing it. That was the landscape of the 80s. It was Friday the 13th. That's it. And then maybe Chainsaw Massacre that came out a little earlier. And they were killing it. And so then when we read the script, it did have kind of a cool plot. It did have a psychological thing that, in the words of, what dreams may come, Shakespeare, that messes with you. It was in the movie Hamlet. It messes with you as Hamlet. If I kill myself, what's going to happen in the dreams, And you remember that Robin Williams movie, Dreams, something? So that was cool. Yeah, he has to go to hell to get the woman out. I mean, that was psychologically what? So I think he had a niche that no one had, someone that could possibly take you out if you don't wake up. Okay, that's a great premise. And then let's throw in some teenagers, and then it becomes cool. I don't think I did any fantastic character development. I didn't quite know anything about acting then. I didn't know anything about myself, so I was like copying Travolta. The people that were influencing you was like Travolta, the Wild One, Brando, James Dean. Okay, let me throw that together and see what comes up. And then it was horrid. It was horrible because I'm like, when I look at my performance, I'm like, what am I? I think I'm trying to do something, and I don't know what Johnny was thinking about, or Amanda, or Heather, but I was trying to figure something out. I think the most authentic part I got to myself was in the jail cell, crying, and that I lost Tina. I didn't do it. That kind of thing. That felt like I was more in touch than sort of superficial, the superficial idea.
Because it kind of felt like when they were creating the character Rod Lane, like he was supposed to be like a delinquent on some level, but also like with a heart of gold. But I couldn't quite. But like the question was, did you feel they're trying to push him more as being kind of this tough guy, or more of this like sensitive?
Who?
Your Rod Lane character, like when they're talking about you about what they wanted from the character.
Actually, maybe, but actually Johnny Depp twisted it around. Originally, it was a jock, so probably it was a little bit of a miscast. But Johnny made it better. But I think what it was to be was like me and the guy had issues. He was a jock, and I was like the dude, like Grease from Danny Zuko from Greece, something like that. But Johnny made it more like a sensitive book learning kind of guy. Yeah. And then, so there was really no reason for me to like try to, I don't know. I didn't really quite read the room. I just followed directions. And kind of like at that point, I'm doing everything the script said.
So when you have a character like Rod Lane, who, I mean, it's definitely of a visual what the character looks like, but they don't give him a lot of backstory. Do you create a headcanon as an actor for him, or did you just go with what the directions were, or did you develop what you thought the character was going to be to yourself?
Yeah, there were maybe I was just kind of in acting classes. So I did Vincent Chase, and I was just in Peggy Fury's, and that was method. So we were trying to method. So Stella Adler was a lot more like writing a whole diary, which I eventually did for other roles. For this role, I think I was really using the sense memory. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling jail. I'm with this girl in bed. It's incredible. It was a little bit silly and superficial on my part. And I didn't know how deeper I could have gone. But I think I did good for what I had and for what I knew, but it was like my first role. So I went out, after that role, I went and did really much more, not better roles. There are no bad, what is it? There's only bad actors, never bad roles. So you have to just keep developing yourself to go deeper for every role. I'm sure that if I did Nightmare on Elm Street now, it'd be a whole other, like, real deep. But really, does a horror film need you to go that deep? I don't think
Hmm.
so. I think the character, I don't know about what Wes did with us. I think the most deepest character was that he really went deep with was Heather, because you can see her mom. And then he character developed the bejesus out of Freddy.
Yeah.
And then that got twisted and turned because I think he was messing with kids, and then the parents killed him.
Hmm.
And then he did revenge on the parents' kids. So I never watched 2, 3, 4. I did a new Nightmare. Came back in a weird premise of that Freddy does really live, and did you see that one? We're all by the
Yes.
funeral. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
So at this point, nobody cares. I think Heather was more had a deeper relationship with Wes, the director, so they can really go deep with it. But I kind of made a cameo that had no substance.
Yeah.
Johnny didn't show up, but it's more like we were at that point just supporting Wes coming back.
So when you're thinking about Wes Craven, who obviously becomes a legendary director, what was he like to work with? I know some directors are actors director. What was Wes Craven like as a director?
I think he's an overall film director, looking for the shot for the story, because I think he's a story guy, and you're not going to get anything if you're a needy actor. Soderbergh's like that, Soderbergh. Got to say his name right. I was lucky to do 2 movies with Soderbergh, and you have to come prepared and do your job. We're not here to. And that's 2 types of actors, like high maintenance actors are just like, hey man, I'm here to work.
Mm.
And I think Wes also is a great casting person, because the movie begins with casting. So if you pick the right actors, less needy and more about, like, if you nail it, then he just rolls and then edits.
Mm.
Yeah. This interview is going great with you and I, but if you had to pull teeth to get me to talk, then that kind of ruins your editing.
I've been there before.
Yeah, so we're trying to make this narrative called Your Show work, and I'm cooperating. But if there's actors that don't, so, and probably people in interviews don't, and then that becomes like, oh God, what's and that's sometimes directors hit and miss.
Mm.
I've been lucky because I can adapt. Randy Wallace, I did. What did I do? We Were Soldiers. Randy Wallace, who did Braveheart, he wrote it. He never talked to you. He was and you have to not take it serious and don't be needy. Go get your job done. So you have to adapt. But if you got daddy issues and you want dad director to talk to you, that's not going to happen most of the time, because directors don't have time for that, really.
Mm. So,
Uh,
well,
yeah.
another one of your more famous scenes as well from Nightmare on Elm Street is the death scene in the prison, right? Now, when obviously there's some special effects involved. There's also a question I had when I was watching. So when it was being discussed, is Rod Lane dreaming at that moment, or is he awake at that moment, and it's still happening to him? Because it looks like you're either dreaming of being in the cell and that's happening, or he's kind of awake and it's still happening to him.
I think he's sleeping at that point, because Freddy can't go through bars. I think he I think he's yeah, it's a good perspective. We're seeing, the audience is seeing Freddy go through the bars, so we must be in that altered state. And then when he wakes up, he's dead. No, when he wakes up, he sees he experiences the sheet around his neck,
Mm.
and then he's dead. That's
It's
a good
Is that a was that a hard scene to shoot because of the because you do have to have some stunts involved in it?
No, but I found a photo of me. It reminded me. I found a photo of me behind the scenes with the harness on and the white makeup and a twisted neck. And they were giving me another wire because the first fish wire broke, even though I weighed a feather.
Yeah.
Uh, so uh, I I think not. It was actually it was in terms of being a needy actor then, that was the only time I really had like a up close and personal with Wes, and it was nice. It was like, oh yeah, this is typical. Yeah, an actor method with the director. Tell me, um, and that can be annoying. I was green at the time. So you're like, tell me, what's my motivation? Oh, how horrible that is to ask a director. And everything changed for me when I became a director. I did 3 movies, and I was like, oh, I don't want to see myself as an actor. So I cast accordingly, not to have high maintenance people on my production. but but Wes was sweet. We shot that scene. I was hanging in, I don't know, 200-pound fishing wire. Uh, your crotch is hurting because it's a vest that goes down there and around. And the sheet, I had this question yesterday. What makes Nightmare on Elm Street apart from today's horror films is they were doing analog special effects and they hadn't quite done digital yet.
Hmm.
So it is the end of an era as you're seeing the new stuff come out. But everything, the tub where she's pulled underneath, that was really like a tank, a tub in a tank. The room did rotate. People would be in wires today, probably. And everything was locked down. The camera's upside down, I'm upside down, and she's on the ceiling, which is the floor. The tongue through the phone. It is dated. It is dated, but it does date analog effects, and these guys were great. When the claws are going through the ceiling,
Yeah.
like it's like the ceiling all of a sudden becomes paper, or when you're trying to run up the stairs and it becomes mushy stairs. They really did a great job, and Wes really pulled out our creative unconsciousness that is connected. He pulled out what happens in everyone's dreams, where you're running away from the bad guy and you can't get out. You can't. Or what about those long hallways
Yeah.
that someone just keeps running down, especially when I'm being choked and dragged across the floor. The floor just keeps going. So it did introduce the distortions that we get on the inner, the dreams and stuff.
So when you're again in that scene, even though you said you had a harness on, you have all that stuff to make sure you're safe. You still have the blanket around your neck. I mean, is there still part of your brain that kind of panics a little bit because you still have the sense of what's being done?
It was eerie. Like, oh my God, am I gonna kill myself in the future like this? It is a little bit like you want to erase it.
Yeah.
Is this is this am I foretelling my future? Uh but it can get kind of grim.
Hmm.
But I didn't I I think that was the only movie that I was sort of a little bit kind of coming off drugs.
Hmm.
So I think what I was doing was, at the same time, I wasn't an addict. I was hiding some feelings and running away from something.
Hmm.
And it's primarily why people do drugs and alcohol, trying to numb themselves. I think I was numbing myself because I was in a bad place financially and in every way. In While Nightmare was great, I was like, oh my God, what have I? Where am I going?
Mm.
You know. But I lucked out. You know. But that's the paradigm of the actor. No matter how much he works, will he have another job? Will
Mm.
he, will he ever work again? You know, even people that win the Academy Awards, they're like, oh my God, nobody's calling me. There's been stories like that.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and so, yeah,
I was gonna say the anxiety involved with that. 'Cause I mean, I have an anxiety issues just normally. I can imagine having to every time I have a job where that's my last job. The anxiety on that would be immense.
most actors have anxieties, man, because your job just ended and, uh, what's next? You're back. That movie's not going to come out for about a year and a half. And oh my God, and then can you imagine a movie star that he's got to sustain it. So there is the anxiety of, will I work again? And then there's the other anxiety, will all this come crashing down?
Hmm.
I got two houses, money's coming in, the movie's a hit. Oh shit, I just did a bomb.
Yeah.
Nobody's calling me. And so it's like, it never, the actors is stay present and handle it and trust. I mean, I trust in God. So to me, it's like, whatever. If I lose it all, then I lose it all.
Hmm.
But I've had many failures in the movie industry. And what that did for me is just made me super strong. Like, but the worst thing is for you to have successes and no failures, because then you can't troubleshoot. Success. If you're constantly winning and then you lose once, you won't know how to handle that. That takes out most people. But to have a lot of failures and then have success, you realize, it's kind of the same.
Hmm. So when you're thinking of Nightmare on Elm Street, once again, we're talking about 40 years. It's one of the most famous horror films of all time. To you, what is it like to be part of that legacy, and why do you think Nightmare on Elm Street has stayed in the collective consciousness of viewers and generations for, like I said, all these years?
Yeah, definitely. I'll go backwards. It's definitely in the unconscious of the collective unconscious. So it'll continue making money. It'll continue having fans. I just did an interview with like a 16-year-old kid, and he's from the UK. So I'm 60. So when I sign autographs, I'll sign to like a six. What, I was 20, so maybe then fans were 20. Now their kids are having kids, and they're coming to the so, and the fathers and parents keep passing it on to the kids. It's like, hey, I can't wait till you grow up. I want to show you. I don't want you to read the Iliad or anything like, uh, you know, any literature. Let me just give you some Americana. And I think the Nightmare on Elm Street, uh, I would just say the first one. I don't know about the other ones. Is a cool movie when your kid is ready. And I'm not dogging on the other ones, but slasher stuff then becomes sort of like I don't know. It's a little over. It's like watching CNN in the war 24 hours. It's like, how
Hmm.
much death do you need to watch?
Right.
But it seems that Nightmare on Elm Street has like a narrative. It has a story, and it begins and ends, and then you go to bed and everything's fine. And then, but you remember what Jaws did to us when we saw Jaws?
Hmm.
I don't, I, till this day, I'm not comfortable swimming in murky waters. So I think I think Nightmare on Elm Street does that. Uh, and I don't think it's harmful or mean in any way. But I think it's a lot more creative than say The Exorcist. a demon in a body, and then a priest tries to work that stuff out. I think this is more there's a monster in the box. What do we do? That's
Mm.
mysterious. He might come now. Don't fall asleep. I think that's going to stay. And then Wes also has all his following of the Scream movies, but The Hills Have Eyes. But I still, if we take the genre, you know, Scorsese's got the mobster genre. I think Wes Craven is one of these. There's Carpenter's great, Romero, the zombie guy. And I'm sure, I do appreciate Saw and all those new ones coming out. Purge was hilarious. I couldn't take that serious. I don't know if that's really a horror film or just someone likes to eliminate people one day a year. It's like a sausage fest. But I say horror film category. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's in the psyche. That's what it is.
Mm. Well,
So
what was it like for you to be part of that and knowing, like you said, 40 years from now, people still like me still want to reach out to you and be like, talk to me about it.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I retired 14 years ago. It does bring me some money. I'm grateful, and it just feels like it touched people and it's fun. I really got to appreciate by doing conventions and signings, I got to appreciate the fans. I've done 70 projects. I've never really got close to any of the fans in any of my movies except Nightmare on Elm Street. You go, oh wow, these people really do, from gothics to heavy metal to mid America to the UK. I mean, and I was in Russia, and they waited for me outside the hotel. In Strasbourg, they were in Madrid. They were waiting for me outside the hotel for a signature. So if for my ego, wow, I'm relevant. At And it continues. It's not like there's a 70-year-old dude outside my apartment building. Nothing bad about 70-year-olds, and he's getting my autograph. It's like a 22-year-old or a 30-year-old.
Mm.
And yesterday, the 16-year-old on a podcast, and I'm like, whoa. So wait a minute, this thing's moving. This thing. So I like that. I feel good. I feel like, wow, you don't have to. I do reinvent myself as much as I can, and Nightmare on Elm Street is reinventing itself generationally because kids feel about it differently than my generation that liked it.
Mm.
Because now this generation's like got so much information, and they're probably watching 20 horror films, and comparing. And the fact that we're still, we're trading the fact that we're still trading baseball cards on Nightmare on Elm Street, that's good.
It's interesting. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street, no matter how old it is, it holds up. I mean, I was watching it again last night to prepare for the interview. It holds up. I mean, Freddy holds up as a villain. The special
Yeah.
effects, even if they're not, modern, they still hold up. The acting holds up. It all still holds up as good as anything that's out right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's not fair. What happens is the effects today are tremendous. I mean, I did a special effects movie in 2004, the first HD, and man, I'm very careful not to feel bad because when I watch stuff today on, generated monsters that are rendered and digital, I could cry and crawl in a hole for my attempt at complete failure in 2004 if I compare. But because if you don't compare, then Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic. It's like trying to say, can Mike Tyson beat Muhammad Ali?
Mm.
Muhammad Ali was the greatest for that time. That's it. And I think Nightmare on Elm Street was the greatest for that time.
Mm.
If you're not comparing, it's like that's what it is.
But I will say something about practical effects to me is always better than CGI in many ways. I mean, the Freddy Krueger acting Freddy and with the makeup and the special effects they had around him feels more tangible than a lot of CGI where you can tell it's an animated villain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The other day, I mean, I'm watching TV. You know, Slow Horses, the Apple TV series. Anyway, they blow up. There's a fire behind me in a castle, and you can see it's all CGI fire layered on open windows.
Mm.
And you know, if you have an eye, you can see it. And also, let's really. I love what Soderbergh. First of all, the medium of film is over. What you're seeing now are digital films, and that's being perfected. In Nightmare on Elm Street falls in the medium of film, picture, 35 millimeter, and how they made effects for 35 millimeter. It's easy to do digital stuff because you can separate the ones and zeros and manipulate it. Film, you have to layer it on top and do all sorts of cutting. I might not know what the hell I'm talking about, but I heard Soderbergh say, um, digital film after 4K, you can't tell. You know, after 2K, I think. But what you're looking at is a digital thing. You're seeing an electronic picture, not a film picture. And so, unless they blow it up to film. So you also, that's what makes Nightmare on Elm Street great is that's probably why they didn't do CGI, or was there any CGI back then? Probably not. It was very Star Wars, right? So they layer, you either do models or they layer, they do, what are they, those pictures in the background?
They did Star Wars, they did a canvas painting in the background to make it look like
correct.
they were in like the Death Star or something along those with the
Right.
stormtroopers and all that. Yeah. Matt,
So you're
Matt
looking the matte painting. So Nightmare on Elm Street is a film, picture film. Today's horror films are digital films. So there's a big difference.
Mm.
And there's a big difference between picture cinema and then digital film. And digital film is insane what you can do now with all the what they're doing with all the the Marvel comic book movies, and
yeah.
You know, Avatar broke the ceiling on that, where you can just stand there all alone in front of a green screen and they develop your surroundings in post. And that's crazy. It's amazing.
Mr. Garcia, it was an absolute honor to speak with you, sir. Like I said, love Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was a big deal to be able to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. God bless all you out there. Thank you.
Bye. Have a great night, sir. A great day.
Bye. You too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Vertical Stars podcast. If you like and subscribe. Turn for the next episode when Mark Maya boards the mothership to discuss so-called living on Kickstarter. To next voyage, travel on.